Hey guys, it's me Steve from Hi-Fi Finder. Today I wanted to do a video on an audio format that's not very common and not well known. The format I want to talk about is the MiniDisk. The MiniDisk was released in the mid to late 90s. If you want more detailed information on the internet on the format, you can check out Wikipedia, Google, YouTube. There's probably some videos that go more in depth about the format, how it was developed, and its specs, and so on and so forth. But for this video, I'm just going to go over kind of just a quick overview of the format. So again, this was developed by Sony in the mid to late 90s. The format I wanted to talk about is the MiniDisk. The MiniDisk was developed after the compact disc. This is the compact disc. If people are not aware, this is what a compact disc looked like. This is the case, and this is the disc. Both these formats used infrared laser to read information on the optical disc. When the MiniDisk had come out, the CD was pretty much on the top of the market when it came to physical media. It was one of the top formats at the time that the MiniDisk was released. They're very similar, that they use a disc and a laser, but as you can see, the size was much different. And not only that, this disc could not record. You needed special disc to record. The MiniDisk was a format that was easy to record. You could record with CDs, but you needed a special player and disc to do that. With MiniDisk, most of them were recordable, although they did have pre-recorded disc similar to CDs. The biggest difference between the two is not just the size, is that the CD was lossless and this is lossy. The MiniDisk is lossy. And at the time, while CD was at its prime, the MP3 was a digital format that was released to be used on the internet and computers. It really wasn't physical. And at the time that this was released, this physical media, MP3 was coming out also. And it was lossy as well, but the MiniDisk was much better at compressing than MP3 at the time. The MP3 became much better as it aged, but at the time that this was released, it was much better than MP3 in terms of lossless. The algebra that they used to compress on this was much better than the MP3 at that time. This was basically not to replace, but to be another format that you could record. You could record your own music that you had in your house. So as you can see, the older format that we used to have was the cassette player, which was an analog form. It was not digital. And this was used back in the 80s and in the early 90s, and even the late 90s, was used to record music from radio or wherever you could plug into the machine. You could basically just record it. This was very similar. You could record like a cassette, and it was compact like a cassette, so you could carry it around. It was much smaller, compact than the compact disc. So at the time, it was a great idea, because as you can see, this is my old player. This is the player was not that much bigger than the actual disc. So this disc was also better than the CD, because to read the disc, you had to basically, as the user, take the disc out of the case and place it into player. The problem was when people were taking out of the case to play it, they would just throw it on the table and wouldn't put it back in its case, and they'd end up getting scratched, and what had ended up happening was the data would be lost, and which would lead to skipping when you were listening to music, or it wouldn't be able to read the tracks or the disc itself. So this, the mini disc, had the disc inside of the case, so you couldn't remove it from the case. Let me just get this to open. Let's see. Oh, it's here. So, as you can see here, this has a door. It has a door right here, and as you can see, it's locked. Now let me see if I can unlock it here. Let's see. There you go. So that's it. So now that you have the door open, you can see the disc inside. That's a mini disc inside. So unless you were not playing this, the door was closed and locked. But as you put it into the player, it would hit a little plastic tab in there, and that would open the door. And that way the machine was able to read the disc. So as you can see on this format, the back end is not as shiny as the front. This is shiny like a compact disc, but on the other side it's kind of like a carbon color. It's reflective like the other side, but it's a darker color. Now the thing is with this is that it used a magnetic field to be able to, for the laser to etch into the back of the disc to put the digital information on it. So it used magnetism at the same time as a laser to etch. But when it read, it just used the laser just like a compact disc. So that's another big difference, is this uses a type of magnetism like the cassette did to record. It uses a magnetic head as well in conjunction with a laser to etch on the digital information on the disc. So that was a difference. Was this, when you recorded with this, well, not this particular disc, but a writable disc, is this would actually use a laser and heat up and burn into the plastic layer inside the disc to record the information. This used magnetism. Now, what was the reasoning for that was because you could re-record on this like a cassette many times without it degrading. So that's one of the things about this format, was it was very unique. It was basically a great combination of these two formats, having its compactness and being able to record anything you want, while having the best parts of CD in the fact that it's a disc. The music is locked in there. The tape can't get stuck or jammed like cassettes used to always. The actual tape used to run inside the machine, and sometimes the tape would get stuck and would come out and get jammed in the machines and destroy the tape, and that was eliminated with the disc. The disc never had that problem. So that's one thing about this mini disc, is it has a lot of the best things out of both formats into one. I mean, this was amazing at the time, to have such a small compact disc inside of a case protected and be able to re-record as many times as you want on it, which was amazing. And as you can see, this is the player that it came in. That I purchased back in the day. And you basically would, here's the door, if you can see it. Let's close it up. But it would just, the door would just pop open, and then you can see there's an arrow here to tell you to slide it in this direction, and basically you would just slide the disc in and then close the door, and that was it. And then it would start spinning, and you have play, pause, stop, forward, just like any modern device. So as I was saying before, there was a pre-recorded there were many pre-recorded mini discs that were offered by Sony, but the problem at the time was Sony was one of the few companies who had pre-recorded discs on mini disc. That meant the catalog was very limited on who would be on mini disc. So that was one of the reasons why, I mean, mini disc kind of, it had a hard start, and it was slower to be adopted than compact disc. I'm saying in terms of North America. In terms of Japan and Europe, it caught on and it did pretty well, but not as good in North America. So like I said, at the time that mini disc came out, it was while compact disc was out. Compact disc had many more artists, pre-recorded artists on that were available to buy. So at the time, it was very hard for me to buy pre-recorded discs. I ended up just buying blank discs and recording music I liked, or ones that I had on CD, because you were able to basically copy your compact disc onto mini disc via using a infrared wire. I think they call it a toss link, yeah. So using a toss link, you were able to link the CD player and the mini disc together, and that way you could transfer your CDs to mini disc. They also had net MDs, which you'd use the internet to download MP3s onto the mini disc. I never got into that. I basically just used blank discs and recorded all my music on there and used it to, you know, I used it because it was portable. You could put, it was smaller than a compact disc, the player, so you could put it in your pocket, and the batteries would last long. It only took one battery compared to the compact disc players at the time. The CD Walkmans would take 2 batteries and wouldn't last as long. Partly because the mechanism was always spinning, while mini disc would spin up and it would retrieve say 2 minutes of music and store it in its memory, and then the disc would stop and then it would play the music, and then when it ran out of that 2 minutes of saved music on its memory, it would spin the disc and do the same thing. It would advance 2 minutes and place that music into its memory and would stop spinning. With a compact disc, it always had to be spinning, which used to kill the batteries quickly, especially if you were changing songs, and because it's very, it was a very physical medium where the laser had to move and the disc had to be spinning. So there's a lot of mechanical things in the player that would demand a lot of power, which with the mini disc, it didn't have to be spinning all the time, which that's why it only required 1 battery. And it was great for that time when we used to carry around music with us to listen to. Not like now where we have cell phones and you know, many other ways to carry around music. Back then it was very limited how you could access music on the go. So I never had, as I was saying, I never had a lot of pre-recorded music on mini disc, but in later years I ended up buying them from people who lived in Europe and in the States or in Japan. So I'll present some of the pre-recorded discs I have purchased over the years from, say, you know, eBay, different internet sites that sell used physical media. So let's start off with this one, David Bowie, Changes. So this is how the mini disc looked in its jewel case. You can see they're very similar, the artwork, to the CD, the compact disc, except it was much smaller. It came with a booklet also, and as you can see, there's the disc. And this is what the back of the disc looked like. As you can see, it had its track listing. They weren't see-through like the pre-recorded. They were very plain, but they did have the album cover on the discs. So that's David Bowie. Changes. What do we have next? Stevie Ray Vaughan. This is Texas Flood. So that's the inside. As you can see, the actual label on the mini disc looks like it's orientated in the wrong direction, and I'm wondering if it's normal, or maybe this was a mistake they made in making this mini disc. If you know, let me know in the comments. So that's Stevie Ray Vaughan. This is another classic and rare find. This is, I know it's not the best looking, but it's not been opened. This is a mini disc of Jimi Hendrix live at Winterland. Still wrapped. What else do we have next? This is Radiohead, Kid A. So this is another classic album from the 90s. Okay. And we also have the Bends from Radiohead. There's the track listing. Here is OK Computer by Radiohead. Another classic album from them. Very good band. Very, very good band. We have from Canada, Alanis Morissette. She is a very good artist from Canada. From the 90s, this album. A very underrated artist. Her vocals are just amazing. So that's Jagged Little Pill from Alanis Morissette. And what's up next is, this is Cypress Hill, Temples of Boom. This is a rare mini disc for sure. Anything from those times is pretty much rare. So we also have the Fugees, the score. This is another classic from the 90s. And what's up next? Well, we've got Michael Jackson on mini disc, which is not surprising since Sony owns a lot of the catalog. So that's pretty cool that they owned his catalog at the time. So I was able to get it on mini disc. There's Thriller. Look at that. Mini disc of Thriller. And what else do we have? We've got Aerosmith. Toy Story. Toys in the Attic. Sorry about that. So that's the disc. There's a booklet with the band. Alright. So what do we have next? Oh, I almost forgot. Michael Jackson, Dangerous. Yes, what else do we have in this box of mine? We've got Daft Punk, Homework. That is definitely classic from the 90s, electronic, a little electronic music. And what else do we have? We've got Post from Bjork. Let's open that up. Okay. I really like this album from her. And what else do we have? Another one from Bjork. This is Homogenic. Yeah. Another great artist. Alright, what else do we have? We've got the Chemical Brothers. Dig Your Own Hole. Pretty cool. And what else do we got? We've got Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here on MiniDisk. Alright. And then here we've got, last but not least, Pink Floyd The Wall. That's how this is the box. It came in a box. Here's the discs. These are the two discs. Wall 1, Wall 2. So we'll start with Wall 1. So this is Pink Floyd The Wall, disc 1. That's disc 1. And let's see, disc 2. Just getting the light. The wall. Number 2. Here's the back. This is the back. And that's the wall. Oh, and I just want to also show with this format how you open these actual jewel cases, okay? So this is the disc. So as you can see, there's a place, let's get the light right. There's a place to put your thumb right here. There's also these places here, as you can see, there's grips for your 2 index fingers. So when you'd hold the disc, you'd hold it like this. Then you'd place your 2 index fingers here, and you would not press hard, but very gently. You would just press both ends like this. Let me if I get this right. Oh, I'll do it like this. Thumb here, and you would open up the disc like this. That's how you properly open a mini disc. So you put your thumb, your fingers here, and press the both index fingers just lightly, and that opens it up. And you see there's 2 indentations to take the disc out and to place it back in. So to me it was a cool format. They don't make a mini disc anymore. They're not manufactured by any big companies anymore. pre-recorded or recordable. The format slowly died after, you know, more of the MP3s took over. People were downloading for free. At that point, I think Sony was seeing the losses and cut the format off before it got too expensive for them. For me, it wasn't the best format in terms of sound because it was lossy, but there is some pre-recorded discs. You would be surprised how good they sound. You wouldn't even know that they were pre-recorded MiniDisc. You would assume that they were CDs or some other digital format. So for me, I don't see them as it was a flop. I just felt that it had a use when it came out. It was adopted, not all over the world. Like I said, North America was much slower to adopt it and didn't fully adopt it, but it was a format that was convenient, small, compact, and was great to be able to record your own music, which is becoming harder to do these days because we don't have physical media. You can use digital stuff on your phone or on your computer, but in terms of having physical media to record on, it's becoming impossible, almost impossible to do. So it was an amazing physical media in terms of its flexibility of being portable. You could move it around. It didn't use a lot of power to in terms of using it in a player. So for me, I think it was a good physical format. Was it better in terms of sound to CD? No. But in terms of not getting scratched and being able to record, I think that was its advantages over the CD. And it was much better than cassette because, like I said, the quality of the analog tape, because it was very thin and it was moving at a speed that was not good enough to saturate the tape properly, it wasn't the best format in terms of sound, cassette itself. The cassette tape, as you can see here, was analog, and it wasn't a format that was particularly made for sound. It was made for portability and the fact that you were able to record anything, anywhere, anytime. So I don't think it was the best either, the cassette, but I think the cassette, for the fact that it could record and it was portable and you could use it anywhere, in your car, anywhere, it was a good format for that. But in terms of sound, I think, for me personally, the CD is the better. But again, I'll remind a lot of the viewers here that it doesn't matter what format you listen to. It could be a record, a CD, whatever it is. If you don't have the proper equipment, you don't have a really good recorded version of that album on your physical medium, it could sound like crap. So sometimes, if it's also the way it's mastered, so if that disc was mastered or a record was mastered with a company or a person who wasn't the best, or maybe didn't have the best original tapes or files to do it, it won't sound well. So for me, I don't think it's the actual format that actually is why things sound better. I think sometimes it's the mastering or the equipment. So you could have vinyl but have crappy equipment, and you could say, well, vinyl sounds like crap. Every time I play it, it sounds like crap. But if you don't have the right equipment, it could sound like crap, and it will sound like crap. But if you spend a little money and find the right equipment, records can sound vastly better or different than any other medium. Same with compact discs. Some people say compact discs sound cold, but if they're played with the right players and the right equipment, they're not as cold, and they sound pretty good. The MiniDisc, on the other hand, was basically it wasn't the best for the sound. Did it sound like crap? No, it sounded decent. It didn't sound bad. It didn't sound like it was missing something, but it didn't sound as good as CD. It was missing some type of, it was more thinner. thinner sound than CD, if I could say that. It was a lot more tinny, and recording with MiniDisk, I found sometimes if you were to saturate the hi-hats on a track on the MiniDisk, if you're trying to record it and the highs were too high, they would distort. They'd sound very tinny. So again, it wasn't the best format in terms of sound, but in terms of convenience and the fact that it was compact, you could record anything, anytime, anywhere you wanted, was amazing. Like even this little machine here I have, if you can see, has a red button to record. I could have recorded anything. I could record speech, anything. It had a place to put in a mic, and it was a format at the time. It was a format that was cutting edge. And then as technology, advanced, it had less of a use. So my conclusion, MiniDisk was a good format. Was it the best or better than what was out there? It was competing with compact disc in terms of sound, and I think that it was a good format. And if you're thinking of getting into MiniDisk, I wouldn't, and if you're thinking that it's going to sound better than any physical format, I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it unless you've already done it. It took me a while to get my collection of MiniDisk, and I've had MiniDisk since it was released. So for me, would I continue buying the format? No, because I don't record music like I used to on MiniDisk, and I've recently purchased a CD burner. So for me, I don't really have a use for MiniDisk, but I still use it time to time to listen to my old recordings, and I still listen to some of the pre-recorded MiniDiscs I have, because they do sound pretty good and they sound different. They don't sound better or worse, they just sound different from other physical formats. So that's it. That is the MiniDisk. I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe, and have a nice day. Bye.